is it a mentally draining activity in any way for you to perform telekinesis? Or could you do it for like 10 minutes straight and it wouldn't really bother you?
If you're using chi, yes, it will drain you. You can deplete your chi. When your chi is depleted, you are dead. So you really have to know how to manage your chi. So yes, in that respect. If you are using mind, no. You go on and on and on forever. You know, you doing this, you can do this all day long. You use your feet all day long. And I'm talking in the respect that when you move your body, you are creating telekinesis. There's no two ways about it. You are sending a spiritual message via your brain. And from that, you are prompting, instigating movement in a material body. And how do you do this? You do that magically in another way as well. Eat an apple, and in 15 minutes, that apple is now Oliver. That's magic, you know. So I think I answered your question.
Okay, you did, sure. Next one. In some of your videos, we see that you, for example, cut the palm of your hand with a knife and then instantly heal it again. In others, you set a piece of paper on fire, which you hold in your hand, and in others, you hold your hand above a candle for like 90 seconds and nothing really happens. Does any of this cause you physical pain as you do it, and has it any kind of negative after effect?
Negative after effect? Yeah, death. No. It is dangerous. When you see what I do on the YouTube channel, there are a few things you don't see. For instance, I do have to spend, for some of what I do, I have to spend 10, 15 minutes calming myself, getting into the right mind space. But other things, it's purely a matter of how you're looking at it. Give me a sec here, I'm trying to formulate this in the correct way. Whoopsie daisy. If you're a sane person and you love yourself and you love life, you're not going to hurt yourself. You're not going to stab yourself. You're not going to hurt yourself. It's just not in us to hurt ourselves as a species, unless you're suicidal, in which case that's insanity and it's not normal. So we don't do that. Now, if you're going to scratch your ear, you don't push so hard that it bloody hurts. You don't do that. You become very gentle with it. It's not in our nature. Now, once it is in your mind that you are the flame, you are the hand, you are the instigator of the flame in the hand, that flame won't hurt you because life doesn't harm itself. So you're basically using a fundamental principle of life and love, not the fluffy, fuzzy love that people commonly think about, but real love whereby life will not end, life does not end, and life will not harm itself. When it comes to life and death and things being destroyed and all the rest of it, that's just what the Indians call Kali. One of the symbols of Kali, one of the Indian gods, is Great Demonic Mother, and she has children's skulls around her neck. What it's representing is this, and I'll put this into the best terms that I can, that is not mystical. If you were to sit on the moon and you look back at our Earth and you time lapse the Earth so that every day is a second time lapse, start moving quite fast. As you watch all the trees come and go, and the people come and go, and the whales and the insects and the birds, and all life comes and goes, what's happening there? This planet, this let's call it the mother at the moment, produces 1 billion children and then eats them, and then produces another 1 billion and then eats them. That's what life is. That's what it's doing. Constantly eats itself in order to create more of itself. That's what we call life and death. but that it's actually just the breathing of life, with the breathing of nature on this planet. So there's an answer in that to people who want to know what to eat. If you want to follow nature, you eat everything. Nothing in particular, but nothing, or everything in general. Go with your taste. The fact is, if you want to follow nature, nature is omnivorous. It eats itself constantly. If you go and sit under a tree and die, it will eat you. You know that. But that's sad. I forgot what your question was. I'm sorry. I get very excited with the things that I see.
Well, it's okay. We can actually move on to the next one, which is again in the same area, and it's about the protection you use, for example, from the flame. Is that something, I mean, you already explained it partly, that kind of when you're connected with it, then it can't really hurt you, but is it just that mindset, or is there also, for example, as you said, some chi involved, that you make some chi protection layer below your hand, and then the flame can't hurt you? Can you speak a little more about that part when you put the hand above the flame?
Sure. In martial arts, you will learn that every time you exhale with a jolt from your dantian, and for those who are listening to this that don't know what that is, that's a little space about 1.5 inches below your navel where you store your chi energy. And there are very specific exercises to store your chi there. Now, excuse me, in martial arts, someone can hit you in the stomach or anywhere on your body, and you'll go, ow, and you'll feel it. But when they do hit you and you go, at that moment, you can't feel it. Now, what happens is whenever you contract and go, your chi comes to the surface all over your body. Boom. You can't stop that. That's just natural in everyone. Once again, it's not something that you develop over thousands of years. You don't have to spend months and months. You just have to stop looking for the authority in books of how to do these things. Stop looking for authority in other people and just do it. It's in there. It can be done. Everyone can do this, but you have to let go of your thought processes. If I was to consciously try and create a chi shield, that would be implying to me that I'm trying to protect myself from something other, and it would not work. So just as a backup, and to me, the whole chi shield, putting your hand over a flame, is just child's play with this sort of thing, honestly. This isn't just me. Everyone in the monasteries that I was with could do these things. They're out there right now. You know, they're either dead, or they're teaching their families, or they're teaching villages, or they're using, who knows what they use their skills for, but it's always for good. And it's not always for good because they've trained to be nice people. It's for good because they're coming from the higher mind, and in the higher mind, it's just, you don't have any plans. You just do stuff. Life lives through you, and you have to be selfless enough to allow life to live through you. And when you do that, suddenly you know everything. Once again, the major key is what I said quite a while ago now, in that you are not what you think. I'm going to drop that piece of conversation right there because that went off in a long direction. The chi follows mind. Chi follows the higher mind. The lower mind cannot control chi. It will not do that. I don't know how much you know about Qigong and Qi exercises, but there is a thing called the microcosmic orbit, where you breathe and you circulate the Qi up your spine, over the top of your head, down the back of your throat, into your dantian. It's called the microcosmic orbit for obvious reasons, orbiting your body with it. That's an exercise in Qi following your mind. So in your mind, You move the chi. You don't say it. You can't. As soon as you say it, you've taken your attention off the chi. The chi will follow your mind like a wake follows a boat, like an emotion will follow a thought. So by moving your mind around your body, you're doing a few things. You are developing the ability to stay leached out of your thought processes for a while. Let me go into a whole other direction with this conversation. If you were going to go into space, you have to put on a spacesuit. And in that spacesuit, just before you, there would be a little panel processor telling you what the temperature is outside, how much radiation's hitting your suit at the moment, how much oxygen you have left, the temperature of the environment inside your suit. You need all of these things to know what's going on in the outside world so that you can protect yourself inside your suit and work in that environment without dying. If you're going to go in deep sea diving, you would do the same thing. You have to have a special suit to survive in that environment. And there, once again, you would have instruments constantly telling you what's going on between you and the outside world, how deep you are, how much oxygen you have left, etc., etc. We are in one of those suits now. It's an Earth suit, and somewhere between you and the outside world, there's a processor, and it's telling you about all of the information that's coming through with light, with sounds, with temperature, and everything else. Now, at some point in our evolution, we have made that processor, which is our thought process, we have started to identify with that as being us. And that is the problem with everything, not just telekinetically, not just ESP-wise, but with the entire world, with what we do to each other, with what we do to the planet, with what we do to animals, just what we do. It's all insanity. Don't get me wrong, there's some lovely, life is fantastic, but in the human world, you know what I'm talking about. So it's all due to the fact of wrong identity. Our thoughts, as I said before, if you take a thought and break it in half, it doesn't know you're there looking at it. It's a dead thing. Now, when you think you are your thoughts and you're not injecting, you're not exercising yourself as a higher mind, you're pretty much atrophied. The dominating force in your head at that point is your thought process, and the higher mind, the awareness of these things, is way down here somewhere. I mean, right now, I know what it is I wish to convey. I watch my brain turn it into thoughts. I watch my monkey splurt it out into vibrations, grunts, basically. Mutually acceptable grunts is what language is. And then I watch your response, and you do the same thing. The only difference is I'm watching all of that, and you're not. Not because I'm special and you're not. It's just that I have decided live my entire life from that higher viewpoint. I don't enjoy using thoughts very much, if I can help it. But in the world, if you want to engage with other people, of course you have to. Now, these thoughts left on their own, like a kaleidoscope, as you turn it with emotions and responses to the outside world, these thoughts all connect up in all sorts of stupid ways, and they come up with all silly ideas of how we must have got here and how life must have started. And if it's conniving enough, and if they can convince other people of these ridiculous ideas they've put together, then they've got a religion going. That's the lower mind. The higher mind watches it do these things and reels back in horror. You know, when you're at school, you start hearing religious concepts, and every child in the world goes, no, that can't be right. That's not rational. But by the time you're 12, 13, you've been convinced, and that's the end of that. But this is what happens. If you're a raindrop floating across the sky, floating over the ocean, you would look down on the ocean, and deep inside yourself, you would know that you came from there somehow. That is your God. That is what you came from. but you have no idea of the processes of evaporation and rain and precipitation and creeks and rivers and everything that brings you back to that ocean, and then it all starts again. You have no idea of that. That is so beyond your little raindrop abilities. So you look down on this ocean and you come up with all sorts of contrivances as how you believe you got up here and how do you get back. And if you can convince a whole bunch of other raindrops of what you've seen, then you've got a cloud or a religion. Of course, the day is going to come where it will rain, and as a raindrop, you will fall and you will hit that ocean. And the moment you do, suddenly you are in every blowhole of every whale, between every scale of every fish, under the shell of every crab. Wherever there's water in the ocean, you are there, and everything is now in you. And that is so different to what you thought when you were a raindrop. And that's like the human condition. It is nothing like you think. And everything is in you. You are not in the world is in you. And what I'm talking about there is your mind is the cosmos, and it is full of stuff that it has put together. Imagine for a moment, if you could, Oliver, please. Imagine the cosmos before there was matter, before there was dust, before there was stars and planets and gases, nothing. And let's say you are there floating in amongst that nothingness with no body, no thoughts, just pure awareness. That's all you are. How would you know you were there? You wouldn't. You have to see something first to know that you're there. And of course, there's nothing there to see. So what do? I'm going to say this in English, but this wouldn't be how it went down. As we all know, space is made of substance. This is mysticism. Space has a substance. We won't go into the Higgs boson and all the rest of it, but it has a substance, obviously. You just look at it, and this is how I figured it out, not through science books. If you look at the shape of a galaxy, the legs are twirled, the legs are all bent. If there was no substance in space, those legs would be sticking straight out as the galaxy turns, because there would be no resistance on them bending the legs on the galaxy. You see what I mean? So there has to be. So that told me there's substance in space. So space is a thing, and you just happen to be that thing. Now, because it has substance, as we all know, when substances reach a critical mass, they start to light up. So there would have been a point somewhere where emptiness has been there, which is you, your awareness, but nothing to be aware of. It's there. Mind is what the Tibetans call it. Now, in that eternity of nothingness, there would have been a point where it started to light up. It wouldn't have been a center, because there is no center. For there to be a center, there has to be a periphery to measure a center from, and there isn't one. So there's no center. So somewhere in space, it would have lit up, and the rest of space would have gone something like, I am. What am I? I don't know. I'm invisible. How do I get around that? I have to be able to see myself. Bang. From that need comes matter. Doesn't matter whether it's through a big bang or any other way, but that's where matter, it's there. Now life can see itself. Now it has something to see, and it starts exploring. Now, unless there is a periphery out there, life is going to go exploring forever in all directions, because it needs to know itself. The fact that you and I are speaking now is based on that internal, eternal need to know what it is. It doesn't know. It's a baby, and it's expanding. And until it explores and realizes every potentiality that it could possibly be as life, every form, then it will never have known itself fully. Now, as a mystic, that's the page that you're on. You are life, seeing what it is. So when you look at someone, there's no need for opinion. There's no need for judgment. That's just another fascinating asset of life on this particular planet. At that point, with that mindset, everything is fascinating. There's no depression. There's no, what should I be doing? It's all, what am I doing now? And you watch yourself. If Oliver wants to meditate for real, Just watch Oliver every second of the day. Watch what he does. Watch what he's saying. Watch why he says it. Watch why he is searching for whatever he's searching for. And eventually, you are developing the watcher inside you, and you've stopped looking outside for authority, because that very Oliver that is watching, in fact, you're not called Oliver. You have to watch Oliver. You don't have a name. Let me elaborate on that one. If you look out the window and look at a tree and think to yourself, outside of this little 6-inch box, to the rest of the cosmos, what is that called? And you won't get an answer. It's not called a tree. It's not called green. It's not called hard. It's outside of the human head. It has no name. It has no meaning. It is alive and it is doing what it is doing. That is the Tao. The Tao means the way, not the way as in the way to the shop or the way to the toilet. The way as in this is the way it works. So that's the Tao. Once you have that mindset, it's obvious that you are all things. All things are in you. Nothing can possibly die. There's no such thing as death. Where the hell could you go if you are all things? If you are the cosmos, if you are the mind that saturates the cosmos, where can you go and still not be within yourself? I'm not talking metaphorically either. I'm talking literally. It's this mindset and this way of seeing things that has the natural consequence of supernatural phenomena, which at that point isn't supernatural phenomena. There's no such thing. Bloody hell.
Okay, that was a very deep answer.
Thank you. I forgot the question.
Doesn't matter. We'll move on to the next one. I have one more question in the same field of paranormal things, and that's the aspect of materializing and dematerializing objects. Is there anything you can tell us about that? Have you experience with it, and how would you say, does it work? Because, I mean, matter doesn't just come from nothing, at least in the way our world seems to work. Let's put it that way.
Teleportation is what you're speaking of. I can't do it, not yet, but I will. Teleportation. Very, very early in my occult training, I'm not an occultist now. Well, I am, but you have to understand that occult just means the hidden things. You know, it would have only been, I don't know, 200 years ago that a walkie-talkie would have been seen as occult. But now that we all know about the technology, it's not. So anyway, getting back to the original, what I was going to say. I went and saw this old gentleman who was extremely good at what he did. He wasn't on the path to enlightenment at all. He was a very, very serious occultist. He followed people like Israel Regardie, Aleister Crowley. He used to study Enochian magic. He was very, very good with the Keys of Solomon, which was very powerful magic, by the way, the Keys of Solomon. Anyway, he was quite old. I think he was about 72 years old. We went and visited this gentleman. He was going to do a demonstration of materializing something out of nowhere for us. This is what happened. We filled the room up. There's about 10 of us. He filled the room up with incense smoke to the point where it was burning our eyes. You could hardly see anyone at the other end of the room. And we thought, okay, he's put so much smoke in here, he's lining us up for an optical illusion. This is what we thought. Real mystics don't go into these things expecting something to happen. You go into these things expecting to be tricked. And then when you're not tricked, it's a pleasant experience. So this gentleman fills the room up with smoke. He had a few candles going around the place. And then he started to focus his mind. And what we realized much later, but not at the time, he was projecting a thought beyond himself into the room. This is something that oh gosh, what's his name? Nikola Tesla used to do this quite often, but that's something else. So this gentleman, he's focused on one particular thought, one image, and then he projects that image outside of himself. And in this particular case, it was a unicorn. Now, within, I guess, 1.5 seconds, all the smoke in the room just went boom and solidified into the center of the room. And it was a unicorn. It was about as big as a Shetland pony, and it started to walk around the room. One woman kind of screamed, and that broke the old gentleman's focus. And again, within a moment, within a second, this unicorn went poof, and all of a sudden it was smoke and our eyes were burning. That's how you do it. It's not really you that has been transported. It is your blueprint is projected via the mind, and matter will gather around that in exactly the same way as when a higher mind starts to enter the womb of a woman, matter will start to accumulate and grow around that. And that's how it happens. If upon death you can watch the body die, and if in death you are not clinging to form and not clinging to life and all of the rest of it, you will be reborn within 48 hours. And that is what they call being free from karma, which is another discussion in itself. So the key is in that, the fact that mind is already all over the place. Mind already saturates everything. It's everywhere. It is, all things are in mind as opposed to the mind being in all things. Here's another good visual for you. If every sea sponge at the bottom of the ocean thought that the water in it was an individual little packet of water separate from everything else, that is one diluted sea sponge. The fact is, the same ocean saturates all the sea sponges, just as the same mind saturates all brains and all life. So you're already over there, you're already in another area. It's just a matter of creating the right blueprint with the right intent and the right feel. If mind, wherever mind is, life starts to coagulate. You can't stop it. It's just what happens. That's why the cosmos is full of life, and it always will be. And that's how transportation occurs. It's a focused thing, but it's not a separative thing. If you think you want to get, if you have the thought process, Oliver wants to go over there, it's not going to happen. You need to already know that you're already over there, and you just need to change the coordinates of your focus, and you will be there. And other people will see it. Most people will see it, not all. I need to explain that. Do we have 30 seconds for an explanation?
Sure.
As I said in the beginning, I was an occultist. I was looking into ghosts and ghost hunting and things like this. And down here in Tasmania, there was a situation where a car park was haunted. And in the car park each night, a woman in white, of course, would walk across the car park. She had no feet. It looked like her feet had been cut off at the ankles. And then she would just bend over and disappear in the middle of the car park. I looked into this for a long, long time, and we looked into the history and all the rest of it. Very long story short, there used to be a homestead there with a courtyard. And in the middle of the courtyard was a well. And the courtyard was made up of the house was around this well, and in the courtyard, all the bedrooms used to face inwards into the courtyard. Now, the woman of the house was very depressed, very upset, very psychotic, and she ended up killing herself one night. In the full moon, she walked out into the garden, bent over, and jumped into the well. Now, her daughter saw this, a 12-year-old daughter, and this horrified her, of course. Now, what happens is when someone is horrified enough, two things will happen. You will either split off an identity and become a multiple personality situation within yourself, or if the mind is strong enough, you will throw the image out and just get rid of it, in the same way that when you hit yourself on the finger with a hammer, you go like that and you try and shake it off. The brain does the same thing with pain that it just does not want there, so it'll throw it out. That becomes a ghost image. It's not alive, it's not a spirit, it's a thought projection of this young girl. Very, very close akin to poltergeist activity. So this girl's created this image. Now, the first thing to understand here is, if this girl thinks on a certain frequency, the brain waves on a certain frequency, only other people that think on that same frequency will actually be able to see this thought picture, this ghost. Because in the same way that if you're trying to talk to me with a walkie-talkie, I can only hear you if my walkie-talkie is on the same frequency. Understand that? You're an engineer, I know you understand that. So that's what's going on there. Now, people today who are seeing this ghost are obviously on the same frequency as this girl that was thinking. Now, the fate was, over time, this house was taken down and it was bought by a shopping center, and a bitumen was laid in the car park, which came up that far, and that's why you couldn't see her feet. Her feet was actually under the bitumen on the ground, so it looked like her feet had been cut off. And of course, when she bent over and disappeared, she was going into the well. That's an example of how it can happen accidentally. So that's a ghost. That's not a spirit. They're very different. A ghost is not a living thing. A spirit is. What did you ask me?
Well, we were starting with materialization and dematerialization of objects, teleportation. That's how we got started.
Okay, well, that's kind of, I think I've answered that.
Yep, you did. 4 questions left. Is that okay if we go through them?
Oh, go for it. I'm enjoying myself. Are you?
Okay, good. I'm having a good time. This is a great conversation, so I'm very happy.
Cool. I'm happy.
Okay, so next one. So here in the West, the whole telekinesis subject is kind of dealt with generally as, well, it must be a trick. It can't be real. And one of the thoughts that I wanted to run by you is it probably the reason for it being so, the fear that if you admit that it is real, that then you have to consider that your thoughts have an influence on the outside world, and that might be for some people fearful, because they always thought, well, my thoughts are safe within my own head. Nobody else is ever going to know what I'm thinking. And that kind of goes out the window when you realize that with your thoughts, you can move objects. So there's this direct interaction. So do you think that's probably the reason for the fear about the whole subject, that it can't be real, because then so many other things have to be real too?
Yes, absolutely. It's a damn good question. It's a long one. Yeah, I think everyone, well, I hope everyone understands the effects that the mind has on water. Have you seen the documentary with the
Emoto, the Japanese guy, Emoto with the water crystals? Yes.
Absolutely. That alone should tell you, should give you an answer there, because we're 75% water. So every thought you have towards other people negatively is affecting your water. The more you hate a person, the sicker you're going to become. The more aggressive you become, the more sicker you're going to become. It's not hurting anyone other than you, unless they are close enough for you, of course, to start affecting that. And that's just on the water level. That's just on that particular case. You also have to understand that the amount of water that is between you and I in the atmosphere, it gets affected by how we think. The water in the ocean, as you are aware, water remembers. It holds on to information forever. So if you imagine how much water there is on this planet, and how much of it has gone through warriors and people who have been tortured and all of the horrible things that people do on this planet, it's all recorded in the water. They've all drunk water at some point, and they've all peed it out and sweated it out, and it's all returned back to the ocean. And the molecules have collected all of that, and that's just on this planet, and that's not counting. And this is where I want to go with it. We have to also remember that before the water arrived on this planet, it was on other planets. Now, even now, as we speak, there are galaxies bumping into each other. There's planets bumping into each other. There's asteroids smashing planets. If this happens to a planet with an ocean that's full of life, the moment that planet explodes and the life gets strewn out into space, a lot of it's going to get snap frozen because it's 250 degrees below zero out there. So big chunks of the ocean get frozen, full of life, full of whatever that life was thinking about at the time and the history of the planet that water was on. And that meteorite, now what do they call that, comet now, which is ice, is going to be flying through space for God knows how many millions or billions of years. Then it hits another planet like ours. And now we have memories from other planets, from other galaxies, from other life. And this is how the cosmos thinks. When I ask you what color is your house, a part of you shot across your brain within a trillionth of a second and came back and told you what color your house was. So that information is there. It's all over your brain. It comes together and creates everything that you know. And in the same way, water carries information across the cosmos. And this is how the cosmos speaks to itself. It's how it's unfolding. It's how it knows what's going on at any given moment, anywhere within itself, is through water. So to answer your question, yes, people are scared. Most of this generation, perhaps not the young generation, but most of our generation have grown up, whether we believe it or not, hearing little things like, you'll go to hell, that's evil, you shouldn't be doing that, God's watching you. All of these things, it has a horrible effect on our psyche when you think you're being constantly watched. Then, of course, we've all been tarred with the same thing. If you're a witch, you're evil and you're going to get burned at the stake. If you're gay, you're evil. If you're not doing what our religion says, you're evil, and there's no two ways about it. So there's all of that. There is all there's all of that. You know what I'm getting at. And it's all yes, yes, yes to your question. It's fear-driven. You know, we had the Stone Age, we had the Ice Age, and this is the Fear Age. And it's also the age of incorrect PC. Honestly, I think political correctness is going to be the next atomic bomb that hits this planet. People are terrified to speak the truth because of political correctness. It's almost become illegal to speak your mind because of political correctness. Very, very cleverly done. Suppression, all of that creates the fear for anyone to step out of boundaries and just go with the status quo. What they want to do. People don't want to break out of the box. They would like to, but they're too scared. And this is why one of the reasons I admired Dean Radin. He steps out of the box. He knows he wouldn't have stayed out of the box. He wouldn't still be doing what he does. He didn't believe. Not even belief. I don't think belief comes into it with science. I don't subscribe to beliefs. A fact is a fact, whether you believe it or not. A belief can't exist outside of the human head. So why the hell would we base our lives on that stuff? It's insanity.
Okay, moving on.
Did I answer you?
The next question I have is related to media and some of the shows we see. There's a lot of shows where we have heroes with paranormal abilities, and I'm often thinking, is that maybe a preparation for society to consider that more something more normal. And I would just be interested in how you see the acceptance of these kind of abilities in the future.
Oh, gosh, you got some good questions, Ollie. I love it. Everyone, there are more and more people. X-Men. Have you seen the X-Men?
Sure.
Yeah. That actually will happen, but not Hollywood style, of course. There are more and more people. I'm sure you've heard of the Iceman at the moment. Not the assassin from America, but the guy up in, I think, Sweden or Switzerland, and he swims in the ice, and he doesn't feel the cold. And he has certain meditations. He does workshops on meditations whereby people can get rid of their own viruses and infections with certain breathing techniques, which is what I will be doing after this to get rid of my virus. There is a very, very obvious decline in religion. There are other things that are going to try and take over that void in people's lives. That's the only danger that would concern me in the future. People are lazy, and it's too easy to follow. And as I said, to follow anything negates freedom of mind and spirit. That all of that situation is going to be a problem. However, and we're going to see more of it. We're going to see a lot more behind the scenes suppression, ways of just distracting us from reality. However, religion, which has a massive part to do with the way we think today, because it was our original education. Let's educate the people so they can think like we want them to think, etc. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm not saying that this is purposefully done. This is just the way people evolve. That's the kind of monkey we are. It's the way we think. But, we are also the kind of creature that can change ourselves and change the way we are. Anyway, I'm going off into a different direction there. So, yes, you can't fix a problem with the same mind that created the problem in the first place. One of my heroes said that, Einstein. So once a religious mind has gone, once a religious mentality, which has basically come along and lead me, tell me what to do, I don't want to take responsibility for my own life because I might get into trouble if I do the wrong thing. So that's what the religious mentality is. And that's why people are lazy, and that's why people are scared. And that is still in people today. And that's why people, including scientists, even though they've long forgotten any religious thing, it's still deep down inside. We have epigenetics. It's in our epigenetics to want to be ruled. It's quite bad, but we'll come out of it. I have great faith in life. Life always goes forward. We've only been here for half a second in the scheme of things, and if we don't behave ourselves, life will get rid of us. The world has already gone into fever because we are infecting it. And yourself, if you have an infection, your body will deal with it in certain ways, but if it gets out of hand, your body will go into drastic measures, and you'll get diarrhea, and you'll have a high fever, and hopefully this will kill the virus before it kills you. And the planet's going to do the same thing. Anyway, let's see what happens with that one. But people are fearful, and there is a decline in religious thinking, and at the same time there is an incline in people producing paranormal activity. People are starting to, believe it or not, read each other's minds. It's happening more and more often. The so-called heathen practices of the East are becoming more prevalent now. It's just that scientists have to change the name. For instance, mystics have always known that meditation is an extraordinarily powerful tool, but it's been poo-pooed by scientists for a long, long time. But now that they realize that it actually works, they basically just change the name. They call it mindfulness now, so they don't sound like hippies. And they would like the world to think that they discovered it, but of course they didn't. And they do this with a lot of things. So while that's going on, what I'm saying there is science is bringing these practices to the forefront, but they could do it a lot quicker, and they also need to understand that everyone used to be able to do these things before religions came along. The religious mentality, we all did it. We were all happy. It was always a golden age. Life and death was as normal as drinking water. You know, we all knew that back then that there's nothing more natural than death, and there's nothing more unnatural than the way we respond to it. That's another insane thing about us. But there again, that comes from the delusion that we identify with this tiny little pixel of a body, and when it's gone, we think we're gone, etc., etc. I think I'm just going over old ground now, Oliver. It's a mindset.
Okay.
It's a mindset.
Related to mindsets, I have one more question on unhealthy beliefs, because well, we don't get unhealthy beliefs just from religion. I mean, we could also say that in a way some we also get from science, with the materialistic viewpoint and the idea that death is the end. And so probably some people think nothing matters with respect to what I do, because when I'm dead, I'm dead. So I've had kind of general psychological question on how you help your clients with unhealthy beliefs. What are the methods you give to them if they want to overcome some unhealthy beliefs?
What a great question. Exactly what I've already said, but this is how I do it. As you know, I have a clinic, and in my clinic, I majorly treat people with mental issues. I won't say illnesses, issues. If you come to me and you have schizophrenia, and you are literally, you're hearing voices and you're seeing things, etc., all I have to do, and I would put you into a induced deep meditative state, and I show you how to do it. Once I've done it to you, you can do it yourself within seconds. It's very easy to do. So I plunge you into a deep meditative state to the point where you can sit back and watch your thoughts being schizophrenic. At that moment, you're fixed. A very, very famous, another hero of mine, John Nash. You know John Nash, a beautiful mind. He did it on his own. He happened upon that viewpoint himself. He doesn't take medication for his schizophrenia. All he has to do when he's talking to a class of people, if someone comes in and talks to him, all he has to do is turn to his students and go, "Can you see this guy?" And if they say yes, then he knows that it's real, and he'll talk to him. If the class says, "No, we can't see anyone there," okay, so he knows that's his schizophrenia, and he just watches that, but it's not an issue. Why should it be an issue? So, and that's how that works. So people come with unhealthy thinking. You separate them from the unhealthy thinking, and the thinking stops, and it's over. Don't need drugs.
But that's something that only you can do to them. Is there anything, if people can't come to you, that they can do for themselves? Any advice for those people, how they can overcome these beliefs?
Well, the first thing you need to do is know that your beliefs have nothing to do with you. They're just thoughts. You just gotta, if you think them, they'll hurt you. If you watch them, they can't hurt you, and you'll see how they make you sick. It's as simple as this, and you will have experienced this yourself at some point in a different way, Oliver. When you're laying in bed and you're quite happy and you've had quite a nice evening, and suddenly while you're laying in bed, feeling very blissful, your heart rate is very low, you're almost dozing off, and you think of something horrible that happened that day suddenly, and you notice your heartbeat starts to pick up, and you wake up and you get a horrible tight feeling in your stomach. At that moment, what's your observation? I felt great, I had a thought, and now I feel horrible. That's the problem right there. That should tell you everything. If you can sit back and be in bliss and be in peace, you watch the horrible thought come up, you watch the horrible feeling come after it, You watch the tensing in your stomach. But if you just watch those things with fascination, it's not a problem anymore. It's only when you try to get away from it. Trick is in being with it. You'll be very surprised at what happens when you be with your pain. You understand? Did that make sense?
Absolutely, yes. I've heard it from other people in similar ways, so absolutely
Because
makes
it's a
sense.
fact. Because it works. It's that simple. You won't get anywhere with beliefs. You'd be amazed. I knew someone, where was I? I was in Queensland, somewhere in Australia, and I was doing a talk. And there was a gentleman there, and this man, he owned a business. He was about 45 years old, and I was talking about beliefs, the difference between a belief and a fact. And he just couldn't get his head around it, and he pointed to the roof, and he said, so you don't believe that if you were to walk across that roof and walk off the edge, you would just fall down and break your legs? And I said, no, I don't believe that. I don't need to believe that because I know the fact. The fact is, if I walk off that roof and fall down, I will break my legs. It's a fact. I don't need to believe it. Belief is the complete opposite of a fact. You don't need them. And it's our beliefs that do the problem. It's our beliefs that create the difficulties in our lives. Get rid of your beliefs. Get rid of your opinions. You don't need them. Replace your opinions with discernments and you'll be fine. Don't have any likes or dislikes. Just be and watch what life is doing. Stop adding wrong or right or any of that to what you see. And you'll watch life investigating itself right before your eyes and you being a conscious participant in that observation of life unfolding and enjoying itself and wondering what it is. Just watch that. I could give you exercises, but that would take another half hour.
Okay, then we won't do that. Okay.
There are exercises. Some of
So,
the best ones are the ones. How long have I got, Ollie?
well, as much as you're willing to invest, I mean, I have time, so.
All right, can I give you a quick lesson as what I would do? It'd be a very abridged version of what I do with people in my office.
Sure.
Yeah?
If you're willing to, go ahead.
Okay. Do you want to participate?
Sure.
Yeah. Give me a second. Okay. As we know, our main problem is in here. If you can fix it in here, out here takes care of itself. Now your head is like a room full of confetti, millions of pieces of confetti, and on each piece of confetti is a piece of information. I just have to close the door. Give me a second. People are arriving. So, analogy. Your head is like a room full of confetti. Each piece of confetti has a piece of information. Your name, your age, your car, etc., everything that you think you know. Now, when you rush into a room and you're all emotional and full of energy, the confetti goes everywhere, flying around all over the place. You can't see the walls. You can't see the pictures on the walls. You can't see outside the window. You start to trip over furniture, etc., etc. It's a mess, basically. Now, a psychologist would have you walk in there and get all of the blue bits and put those in a nice little pile, and all the red bits, put those in a pile. That can take lifetimes. The trick is this: when it's getting out of hand, you walk out the door very slowly, close the door behind you, and go and do something else. When you come back in 10 minutes, nice and quietly, walk in the door slowly. All the confetti has settled onto the floor. You can see outside into the beautiful world again. You can see what's on the walls. You can see your furniture. And you can even find the vacuum cleaner and vacuum up all of the confetti. And your problems are over. Put that little story aside for a moment. I'm going to tell you now what meditation is and why it works. Everyone has a predication, and that means some people learn better by listening. Some people learn better by watching. Some people learn better by feeling or doing. They're tactile people. So if you're the kind of person that is a hearing person, you would get something like this. Now, I don't know if you can hear this properly, but see how long you can hear this bowl chime for. Can you see that okay?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think that chimed for about 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel?
Relaxed. I like those tones. I like to watch ASMR videos. I don't know if you're aware of ASMR, but there are some people who do ASMR with those. It's kind of a relaxing technique, and they use those singing bowls as part of their element of their videos, and I like that very much.
Okay.
So
What's happened here, and you've just given me a fantastic example of what I'm about to say. Going back to the room full of confetti, when I hit this bowl, and you're listening with the intent of listening until you can no longer hear it, you've left that room and you've gone into your ear. You don't give credit to the bowl, you don't give credit to the people hitting the bowl, don't give credit to the people making DVDs. You had the ability to leave your mind and sit in your ear and just listen to this sound. And you left the room, and as you're doing that, the confetti started to sink. This is why meditation works. If you're not that kind of person, you would take your beads. Religious people call them worry beads because they give the credit to the beads, but it's not the beads. If I have a mind that is just, and I'm full of worries and issues, take your beads between your finger and thumb and you feel the first bead. You feel how cold it is. You feel, see if you can find any scratches or dents in it. You're not looking at it, you're feeling. You feel the roundness, you feel every single thing you can feel about that bead, where the hole begins, where the wire is going through the hole. Once you've fully covered that bead, you go to the next one and you do the same thing again. If that takes you 5 minutes, left the room for 5 minutes. The other question is, what are you that can go from there to here, actually? So if you're a tactile person, that is how you get out of your head. If you're a visual person, you would use a candle flame. Or watch the waves on a beach. The whole point is be fully in your finger and thumb, be fully in your ear, be fully watching the candle flame or whatever. Now, two things can happen here. There's two levels. In the beginning, you are going to feel and see and hear these things somewhere inside your head, but it's an isolated area. It's like having a safety room inside your home. So there's an isolated area you can go into and do that. The confetti will still settle down around you. But as you develop that higher mind, because when you do come back into your head, if all the confetti has settled, there's a good possibility you will have an enlightening experience, because you are hopefully the only thing left in your head at that moment will be the dominating force, which will be the higher mind. This, getting back to your original question, when you do this, the unhealthy thinking stops, the unhealthy beliefs stop until you can get back in there. And momentarily, that will break the cycle between the unhealthy belief and your body's response to it. As I said, when you lay down in bed and you're full of bliss and all of a sudden you have a horrible thought, you can see the chemicals that get released into your body, and now your heart starts to palpitate. The reason your heart's palpitating is because your body just released adrenaline into your system, and perhaps cortisol as well. And they're going to rip your veins to pieces. Poison yourself every time you get angry. Poison yourself every time you get upset. Got to stop it. And these are ways, these are technologies that have been honed in over thousands of years. Simple as they are, and it works. It's a far more simple method than trying to put Valium together and stuffing that into your body. That does nothing. So that's how you can do it. There are the exercises that will take you out of your mind. Of course, there are other exercises to take that awareness beyond the physical and get to the outside world. But the first thing you have to do is find that higher mind. And believe me, it's as simple as just watch your thoughts. When you're watching your thoughts, that's the higher mind. When you're thinking, that's the lower mind. It's that simple. So if you can sit back and watch your thoughts being silly, you're good. That's how I fix people in my clinic. It's a lot easier when you're with them because you can put your own energy, you can take control of their willpower should they allow you to do so. And that's much easier. And like I said, for me, it's a case of inducing an extremely deep meditative state to a point where you observe yourself in the same way you would if you were astral journeying outside of your body. It's almost like having an out-of-body experience. Just after I spoke to you yesterday, I was speaking to a student of mine in Baltimore in America, and he's just had his first experience. He's been doing Qigong for a couple of years, but he's been doing it from books, and he's been doing it from people who think they know what they're doing, but can't give any evidence that what they're doing is actually working for them. So what happens, there's a lot of techniques you can learn from books and from public classes and all the rest of it, but there are keys. The keys that make the difference can only come from what's called transmission of mind beyond the teaching. And that's kind of what I do with people. So this young gentleman, he's been doing his Qigong for a couple of years. He's been using his thoughts to direct his Qi. He's been using his thoughts to do his Qigong, and he has never developed anything from that. I've spent 2-3 hours tops with this guy, and I showed him the difference between the observer and the observed, the higher mind and the lower mind. Where I come from, that's called the host and the guest. The host being the higher mind because that's the part of you that was born with the body. The host is the mind that nature put in there. The guest came later. The guest is made up of a bunch of thoughts and opinions that were put in there by your parents and the teachers and the world around you. So that's not real. That's why it's called the guest. But it takes over your mansion. It becomes the boss. It becomes the dominating force, and you end up being forgotten in the attic. And that's the condition everyone's in at the moment. The lower mind is ruling the world. I don't blame it all on religion. It's just that religion was the first one to take advantage of this observation in people and turned it to, oh, you know the rest. But that's how you do it. There's a few exercises that can help a lot of people. I think there is a video where I can talk people down into a deep meditative state. I think that's already on there. And that's it. If anyone wants to come along and do a monthly interview based on one particular question in order to learn things, then I would be very open to doing that as well. And then we can get, for nothing, of course, and then we can get some stuff out there that people can listen to and practice and just start taking control and responsibility of their lives, and life will get better. Hope will start to show itself. The light at the end of the tunnel will start to reveal itself, and everyone can be happy. It's not impossible. It's not even difficult. You have to have the balls. Male or female. Didn't know what to say.
Okay,
that's all I know.
Thank you for sharing. That was very, very interesting. So I have one final question, the last one for this interview. It's a very broad one. And so some people believe that humanity is headed for a global shift in consciousness. Others think that we are maybe headed for a huge global crisis. And I would just be interested in your take on humanity's future over the next decades. What do you see? What's in store for us?
The next decades?
Yes, sure.
Well, I have a bucket list, and on my bucket list, I would like to die on Mars because I think by the time we get to Mars, I'll still be around in this particular body. If I'm not, I'll go there in someone else's body. So the only reason I can enjoy that bucket list objective is because we are due for yet another quantum leap in consciousness that is going to happen. It's already begun. We have to get rid of our the way we see time, the way we think about time, and then you realize that things are happening very quickly. You know, it was only 100 years ago that the Wright brothers got off the ground with an aeroplane made of balsa wood and rag, basically. But they got off the ground. 100 years later, here we are walking on the moon. 100 years later, here we are with the space station. 100 years later, here we are with rovers all over Mars. That requires a massive jump in human consciousness. It wasn't too long before that we were burning witches at the stake. Not very long at all before that. So we're moving very, very quickly, extraordinarily quickly. We are in the first quarter of a quantum leap in consciousness. If you go back to, I apologize here if I get this wrong. I'm not sure if it was the Australopithecus or the Neanderthals, but they had stone axe heads for 1 million years. And in 1 million years, no one thought to put a handle on one. 1 million years to figure out, hey, let's put a handle on this thing. That was very slow compared to the way we're going now. If you look at the way we're going now, we are flying ahead. So don't be impatient, because it is moving very quickly and human consciousness is expanding. A lot of it is due to the internet and YouTube in particular, because let me go back a little bit. Before Hubble, the man that they've named the Hubble telescope after, we all thought there was only one galaxy in the cosmos, and it was ours. That's what we thought. Before him, if you had said to anyone, okay, I need you to imagine the cosmos, they can't. They have nothing to work with. You say, okay, just it's easy, fill it up with millions of suns and asteroids and all the rest of it. They can't put that together. And that was only 50 years ago, maybe a bit longer, 50 to 100 years ago. Now, if you say to someone, imagine the cosmos, everyone's got a picture, and it's big, and it's full of galaxies. People even know the numbers, you know, 1 billion stars, how many planets are around those. So the fact that we can picture these things, the fact that we have these visuals at our disposal now, means that our consciousness is just, it's moving too fast. We're not keeping up with it. I don't think we were ready for the internet, to be honest. It is killing people, but that's evolution. Every evolutionary jump is usually because the last model isn't keeping up with things anymore. So it comes up with a new model, and that's where we're at. Life is producing a new model right now. I can tell you now, it's not going to be allowing a lot of the things that have destroyed this world, religion being one of them. We won't get to Mars while that is still an issue. I know for a fact that the authorities aren't going to let religion leave this planet. They're not going to let nuclear war leave this planet. If you believe that there's an extraterrestrial community out there watching things, that is having quite an effect on the way the governments are doing things at the moment. I'm not going to go too far into that, because that's a whole different genre of things. Life out there beyond the earth, but it has a lot to do with mysticism. It has a lot to do with what we are. It has a lot to do with where we came from. We didn't originate on this planet. Everyone knows that these days. Like I said, that's another story. If you ever want to get back into that one, give me a call, Oliver, and we'll talk about that one.
I think we will. It sounds interesting already.
It is. It's brilliant. It is. Where do we go from here, friend?
Well, I think we'll just have to agree on a part 2 because you already opened up so many other subjects here today. So I think we'll have to do this again in some time, maybe a few months down the road.
Oh, I would love that. That would be fantastic. I'm actually looking forward to meeting you in person.
Well, if you come to Germany, then we'll make that happen for sure. I mean, it would be great if we can work that out.
Yeah, I'm on my way. Don't you worry about that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your time, and it was a really great interview. Very interesting, very many deep insights, and it was great. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure, and thank you all for listening. If you are listening, see you, Oliver.
Okay.
Take care.